So I explained a little bit what is personal reconnection for our audience. I would like you, please, to share your personal experience with this process, with these frequencies, and how would you explain to someone who doesn't know anything about it, what is personal reconnection? Rodrigo, please.
Thank you so much.
Let's just, Rodrigo, translate my question.
Yes.
A Cristina perguntou à Andra como para ela partilhar um bocado da sua história com a cura reconectiva e com a reconexão e de que forma é que a experiência e este processo de lidar com as frequências se deu na vida dela.
Okay. So my story with the reconnection started 13 years ago when I first read the book. And this reading Eric's book moved, touched, and inspired me so much. So I wanted directly to go inside this work. So I attended the program.
Andrew, I'm sorry, let's just, Rodrigo, translate.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem, I was writing things down. A experiência da Andra começou há 13 anos, quando se confrontou com o livro do Eric Pearl, que a moveu profundamente e que a inspirou a mergulhar ainda mais fundo neste assunto. O livro que a Cristina está a segurar neste momento.
Exatamente. Yes, Andra.
Yes, this is the Portuguese version, probably. Yes. Great. So I immediately wanted to be a part of this work as practitioner, but first of all, as beneficiary of the reconnective healing sessions and the personal reconnection.
Inicialmente quis fazer parte deste processo e da reconexão, mas inicialmente não como facilitadora, mas como beneficiária.
I was so enthusiastic with this, and I did both in the same time.
Estava tão entusiasmada com isto que fiz ambos ao mesmo tempo, aprender e receber.
And probably the experience of my personal reconnection
Provavelmente a minha experiência da reconexão pessoal
made me to evolve and to make some things that I couldn't imagine that I will do before.
fez-me evoluir e fazer coisas que eu não me imaginaria fazer antes.
At that time, I didn't know what the reconnection means.
Na altura não sabia o que é que significava a reconexão.
But afterwards, after I've graduated the Reconnection Certified Practitioner Program,
Depois de ter... Ok. Depois de ter realizado o nível 3,
which is a program that you are going to have in Portugal soon.
Que é um programa que nós vamos ter em Portugal muito brevemente.
Janeiro.
I realized that even it is a very, very interesting and complex subject.
Reparei que era tema muito complexo, mas interessante.
The way of facilitating and the results are extraordinarily simple and impressive.
A maneira como nós obtemos resultados é extraordinariamente simples e muito impressionante.
Because the process of the reconnection means
Porque o processo da reconexão significa
that the energetic system of a person,
que o sistema energético de uma pessoa,
consisting in those known like tonal meridian lines or acupuncture lines,
consiste nas linhas, ia pedir ajuda, Cristina, que consiste nas linhas meridionais da acupuntura,
are connected or reconnected
estão ligadas ou reconectadas
with the ley lines of the planet,
I'm sorry,
the energetic grid that surrounds the planet.
energetic grid.
Yes, let me translate this part. So,
Please.
O que a Andra está a explicar é que a reconexão pessoal liga os nossos meridianos, os nossos pontos de acupuntura, os nossos centros energéticos do nosso corpo, às linhas de lei, à rede energética do planeta Terra, que, como já muitos sabem, é muitas vezes relacionado com as pirâmides, Stonehenge, todos esses templos estão nessas linhas de lei. Portanto, são a rede energética do planeta. I'm sorry, Andra. I'm just
fine.
a little bit for the lines.
With the universal energetic grid.
com a rede energética do universo.
This creates the condition for a download, which is more important and more intense, of energy lightened information.
Isto possibilita uma descarga de luz e informação.
And this creates the conditions for that person who receives the reconnection.
Isto cria as condições propícias para a pessoa que recebe a reconexão.
To a very important increase and evolution. A more accelerated evolution rhythm.
Esta última parte.
Exploração e expansão de consciência. Portanto, resumindo, como nós explicamos na TheReconnection e como o Dr. Eric Pearl explica, a reconexão reconecta 3 sistemas. O nosso sistema energético, que nós emitimos, os nossos biofotões, os nossos pontos energéticos, aos pontos energéticos da Terra e ao campo, que é a rede energética do universo. E isto faz com que consigamos receber luz e informação de uma forma muito acelerada, ou seja, uma expansão de consciência muito acelerada, que nos põe num lugar de progresso de vida também acelerado. Yes, Sandra.
So the reconnection brings in a sort of vehicle which consists in axiatonal lines.
Então a reconexão traz-nos um tipo de veículo que nós chamamos linhas axiatonais.
That actually reconnects us as human beings.
Que na realidade reconecta-nos a nós como seres humanos.
With the whole universe.
Com todo o universo.
And thus with the wholeness of us. And thus with the wholeness of us, with
our core.
We are.
Assim como a nossa essência, um retorno a nós mesmos. Yes, now for now on, Rodrigo, please.
Great.
Andra, please.
Yes, and a very interesting and important explanation of these axiatonal lines.
Uma leitura muito interessante e importante sobre estas linhas axiotónicas.
We find in this book.
Encontramos neste livro,
which is called The Book of Knowledge, The Keys of Enoch.
O livro do conhecimento.
As Chaves de Enoch. Sim.
De Enoch. Okay.
The Keys of Enoch, The Book of Knowledge. And here is another interesting story. Eric, when read 2 chapters of this book, 314 and 317.
Rodrigo, consegues?
Consigo sim. O Eric tem uma história interessante sobre este livro. Quando leu os capítulos 3, 1 e 4, 3, 1 e 7.
This was the element that decided him.
Este foi o elemento que o fez decidir.
To get his personal axiatonal alignment.
Para receber o seu próprio alinhamento axiotonal.
Which made him able to become like a source of these frequencies on the planet.
Que tornou possível que ele fosse como uma origem, uma fonte das frequências no planeta.
So first, even if we don't understand exactly the process, which is not very uncommon thing.
Primeiro de tudo, apesar de não percebermos o processo totalmente, que é uma coisa muito comum, é algo muito comum.
We can enjoy its benefits.
Podemos usufruir dos seus benefícios.
And more of that, we can become practitioners who are able to facilitate personal reconnection for others.
E mais do que isso, podemos tornar-nos facilitadores para possibilitarmos a reconexão para as outras pessoas.
Thank you so much, Andra.
Can I tell something that I discovered just 5 minutes ago? So I wanted to give some feedback also to our Facebook followers, sending some links, and I searched in Google for the first time after time ley lines, and I found that Google mapped the ley lines,
Right.
Yes, and if Google is mapping something, it means that it's true.
Consegues traduzir?
Peço desculpa, Cristina, eu acedi o link do Guilherme, estava curioso.
Procura muitas coisas no Facebook para partilhar com os participantes e com os seus seguidores. E procurou as linhas de lei, as tais linhas energéticas da rede cristalina do planeta Terra, no Google. E não é que o Google está a mapeá-las e está lá o mapa das linhas de lei. Portanto, eu vejo estas linhas de lei como rios de consciência. E porquê que as pirâmides do Egito, as pirâmides de Machu Picchu, o Stonehenge estão ou nos cruzamentos dessas linhas? Porque nessa altura os templos eram escolhidos pelos magos e os magos sentiam a energia do local e, portanto, naquele local sentiam que havia uma energia mais elevada e construíam-se ali as pirâmides e outros templos sagrados. I'm explaining in English the origins of the leylands, what I know. Portanto, isto só para enquadrar. E a reconexão, no fundo, reativa esta ligação esquecida por nós, porque nós vivemos na consciência da separação, na consciência da competição e não nesta consciência de que somos um e neste estado de consciência de meditação quase, de ver o aspecto, sempre a fotografia maior de todas as coisas. E a reconexão possibilita-nos depois esta ligação ser ativada como um veículo, como disse muito bem a Andra, que se ativa e que nos deixa aceder a esse campo de informação universal, conhecido pelos cientistas também como o campo. I'm going to show the book.
Vamos mostrar agora um livro.
That is the field, right? O campo. The field de Lynn McTaggart explica a rede universal energética, a rede energética do universo cientificamente, porque aqui há uma coleção de estudos científicos efetuados e que de alguma forma prova que existe este campo de consciência que nós todos acedemos, com a reconexão pessoal de uma forma acelerada e muito mais ampla. Andra, do you want to add something or can we jump right into the interview that you made to J.J.Hurtak?
Yes, let's go to the source of this information, then to the source of this work on Planet.
Estava a perguntar a Andra se queria adiantar mais alguma coisa. Eu vou partilhar o meu ecrã para que possamos ver a entrevista da Andra a J.J.Hurtak, o primeiro homem que escreveu sobre a reconexão pessoal, escreveu as Chaves de Enoch, o livro do conhecimento, onde vamos buscar a fundamentação principal do nosso trabalho. Portanto, vou partilhar. Can you see?
Yes, yes, we can.
Click.
Andra Ivanov, Reconnective Healing and Reconnection Practitioner from Bucharest, Romania. Today I have the absolute privilege to interview the famous doctors J.J. and J.J.Hurtak. Welcome in Romania, and thank you so much with deepest gratitude for you being here and answering my questions. So, as you very well know, more and more people found out, benefit, and practice reconnective healing and reconnection. 25 years ago, Dr. Eric Pearl introduced this work on the planet. And this happened because he read chapters 314 and 317 of your book. And only this was that opened this work on the planet. It was like a portal. He introduced this work because he read these chapters. So he downloaded this possibility for many other people. It's like a portal. This book contains many, many portals, and this was one of them. And this work has two applications. So reconnective healing, which is for rebalancing the human being at all levels via bandwidth of frequencies, energy, light, and information, and personal reconnection, which is once in a lifetime process that accelerates the evolution of human being via axiatonal alignment. So from this point, please explain us what is the connection between the information, some of the information comprised in your book, and this work. Or in other words, what can you tell about how this work represents, in a way, in reality, some information of the book?
Well, we appreciate the work of Eric Pearl. Of course, we don't look at any one healing modality, but we really appreciate the fact that he did go back and say, this is one of my main sources, is to go back to the keys of Enoch. So we really appreciate that from Eric. And I would say that the main thing that we're talking about, and I know that many of you have read, is the idea in key 314 that individuals can be reconnected with the Adam Kadmon image through a resonance operating through hyperdimensional space. And in a sense, that is what we're talking about. Of course, the axiotonal lines are written in key 317, but the idea of the reconnection to the Adam Kadmon, that is really this over self, the keys of Enoch. And even though, like I said, we don't do any form of healing ourselves in particular, we do recognize that if you can align yourself with that higher self, you are able to do that. And I think that's what the keys are talking about, and that's what Eric was also picking up on.
Everybody has the dynamic for healing and for regeneration. And what we see here is the double bonding process that we have discovered even as within the human brain in terms of the pyramidal cells and the exotonal lines or forces that on a microbiological scale represent within the mind what acupuncture medicine represents in the external body. So putting these two together, the external and the internal, requires a certain careful preparation.
So we also like to talk about electromedicine, or the vibratory frequencies that work also with, we would say on a certain level, with a higher light energy that's also able to come down. And then when it comes down, it operates in this electromagnetic field that we're all part of, because all of our bodies have some sort of electromagnetic energy. And then that transforms itself into a type of chemistry or chemical energy that is used by the cells to change and really make things better in our bodies and in our minds. And a lot of the healing can also take place in our mind. And I think that that's really important.
So this amazing book, it's full, it has lots of information and lots of concepts. Please explain us one of them. For instance, the axiotonal in general and axiotonal in particular.
Well, we're told axiotonal lines, reading from the vocabulary, vibratory lines which connect levels of human electrochemical activity with astrobiological circuits that span the solar system and are connected with resonating star systems. So there's what we call in the new vocabulary a inductive linkage of how our mind is connected with the vibratory processes of the universe. The axiotonal reality represents really the enhancement of the acupuncture grid system that is built into our body. Basically, as we follow the Chinese or the Tibetan or even the French history of acupuncture medicine, we see there are 12 basic meridians or lines of energy throughout our body. As we connect them with the, shall we say, the biophysical forces on each of the chakra levels, we are able to, so we say, harmonize the energy, the vibratory energy that we do not recognize in medicine until quite recent times, as Desiree said. You can elaborate?
Well, the whole idea, even with, look at string theory, if you want to go back to science for a minute, they're already talking about 11 dimensions, and some aspects are even talking about 26 dimensions. What's a string? Well, it's a vibratory connection. You don't see it, but it's going into other realms. So the idea of the axiotonal lines are very similar to that, where everything within our body, all the acupuncture meridians are also going into our, who we really are, our higher selves. And we actually think that the higher self is the key, and that it sends down energies, and we can manifest here, we can manifest in another part of the planet, we can even manifest in another realm if we want to, because there's no limitation. We're not limited to planet Earth, but we are connected to our higher sense of who we are and where we are. And yes, everything around us is influencing us. And that goes into our knowledge also of consciousness, because we don't feel also consciousness does not completely reside in the brain. That there's a consciousness field, and we're sending into that field, but we're also receiving from that field. And what we choose to receive is really up to us. That's who we are. We make decisions all the time on what kind of consciousness we want to receive. If we want to work with our higher self, we want to ignore our higher self.
Dr. J.J.Hurtak, how comes that you were able to write this fantastic book, this source of information?
Well, first of all, I was interested in questions of life. Why humanity is here on this planet? What happens after we die? Where do we go? And so I asked these questions of many famous philosophers and teachers that I had. And so I began to experiment not only with one tradition, but several traditions, and using what I call the sacred names or sacred expressions of the divine in the ancient languages of the holy texts or scriptures, the Hebrew, Aramaic, and Sanskrit, the Greek, and some of the Coptic. I had a very unique experience. That experience was a consciousness transformation, where I was able, in breathing and utilizing certain vibratory techniques, to create what some call a morphogenic door, a pathway where a new reality appeared. And physically and spiritually, I was able to go into this greater light, this greater pure-physical opening.
And the whole idea that consciousness is really the original reality and the physical being is the secondary reality is something that's just coming out now in the field of science.
So this was not a channeled experience. This was an actual direct contact experience where my body was biolocated physically from this dimension off the planet into another dimension. I was brought back and my body showed, shall we say, light manifestations for several weeks. And during this period of time, I wrote, I conceptualized, of course, using a recording device, what I saw in terms of sacred geometry, sacred mathematics, a type of higher physics of consciousness, and the spiritual dimensions of what I was shown to be the next phase of the human race, that all humanity would have an opportunity to go into an accelerated phase of knowledge.
Right, this is so important because really what he was shown was that all areas of science, we'll say from even the geophysical, the subatomic, to the astrophysical, would take a quantum leap because we really are going through a change at this time. And we need to understand who we are, why we're here, and where do we go from here. And I think the Keys of Enoch answer a lot of those questions.
You have so many historic realities, but you also have great spiritual realities that point to the greater life, the greater purpose of life. For our life is very short on this planet. In some ways, it's a schoolhouse for the greater voyage of consciousness. And so our work in the last 40 plus years has been to examine 64 areas of science and spiritual philosophy, directing the attention of all branches of the human race toward a unity, a perspective, a spiritual and scientific dialogue and maturity where the two come together. Humanity is blessed.
Right. So, in brief explanation, what represents this fabulous book for humanity?
What represents this? It's really the vibration of the divine spark within us, that we are all embryo gods waking up to our life with the greater intelligence, that what the indigenous call the star nations, the people of the higher worlds. What Mircea Eliade would call the myth of the eternal return, the return of the programmers or architects of life.
Have you met him, Mircea Eliade?
I was a student at the University of Chicago.
Really?
Yes. So I had the opportunity to know him as a professor of the Sanskrit traditions, but also of the traditions of comparative religion, showing the background of how there are symbols and sacred expressions that are very important. But I had to go beyond the academic work because it was not satisfactory to me. It was only when I began to seek the purpose of life, to understand the nature of the divine spark, that I prayed truly with all my heart, mind, and spirit, utilizing what I felt to be the symphonic dimension within the human body, the blueprint we call the 7 chakras in the East, the 7 seals in the West, as a vibratory process of language and musical experience that I had this higher contact experience.
Right, so we see how all these ancient cultures really come together, and it's not that any of them were wrong in what they said. In fact, we want to highlight the fact that whether it's the Bible or whether it's the Eastern traditions of seeing other realms of intelligence is valid. In fact, we don't feel that there's a division between the science that we're learning today and the ancient wisdom. And that's part of the work of what Dr. Hurtak saw in his experience, that all of this is valid. We just need to take a quantum leap and realize, one, we're not alone in the universe. 2, we ourselves have higher bodies. I know that's part of the work you're doing. And then we are connected with those kind of, we call it the over self. Some people call it the higher self. And that's our interconnection. And what we do down here is only a very small aspect of who we really are.
We are ultimately homo universalis. We are universal humanity, waking up to the reality that our little schoolhouse is now changing and opening the door and the window for futurism that is positive. A graduation, an experience that will make us cosmic citizens. We are experiencing the true gifts of healing, the true gifts of unity between that part that would represent the scientific, the structural side of life, and that part which is consciousness change, the interior dimension of the heart, mind, and soul. So to put it simply, the keys represent the blueprint of a new science of consciousness, which is going to unify not only the East and West, but also the North and South. The keys of Enoch cannot be read as an ordinary book. They have to be experienced through sound, through visualization, and through the techniques of sacred geometry. We are beings of the human creation, but we're also cosmic forms of intelligence.
Well, the keys of Enoch say, we really are cosmic beings. And the whole thing with the idea of our overself, I think this is so important for the healing modalities, that the physical form is only one manifestation of the soul body, one could say, the soul spirit as we call it. And so, to heal yourself, you need to realign, reconnect with that higher self. And when you do that, higher self is in perfect shape.
More specifically, there is an syntony or inner dynamic in every cell of our body that sings just like a vibratory string. And some of the great thinkers and researchers, Dr. Pearl, who understood the importance of this key, have demonstrated that we are a vibratory process of life waking up into the greater body of creation. So each one of these keys goes with a whole new area of science. And this particular area of occidental medicine goes with an understanding also of astronomy and astrophysics.
So we need to see ourselves as really vibratory beings.
Beside our physical mind, we have a higher or overself mind that orchestrates the way our body, on the biological level, on the periphysical level, on the mathematical and the musical level converge.
Right, I have to say, as we know from Wi-Fi signals and cellular signals, you don't always see what's out there. Yeah. And I think people have lacked their understanding of seeing that we are more than this physical form, that our energies are going out into space, into other realities, connecting with one another. We're not separate. None of us is separate.
And that's basically our message, that we're here to help humanity into this next chapter of life, the human evolution connecting with the higher evolution. Humanity reaching out, to use the expression of Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel, and touching the hand of the divine.
Right.
And that's what brings us together.
Yes.
So we thank you, we thank our audience, and we ask all of us to keep looking up with a heart of love.
And realize you can travel to the stars either through a rocket or through inner space.
Through the power of the mind.
Okay. I thank you so much with the deepest gratitude. I thank you for who you are and what you represent for the humankind and the evolution of consciousness. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andra, for this interview.
I'm so happy. Thank you.
So touched. I am. I want to just finish with a Portuguese thing, and Rodrigo, please you translate in English.
A Cristina queria só terminar com uma pequena coisa em português e eu vou traduzir.
Sim, eu queria explicar que J.J.Hurtak tem a Academia da Ciência Futura, se calhar não precisas traduzir para inglês, onde podem descobrir este livro e outros. E partilhei com a Andra que estava emocionada, porque esta mensagem é tão esperançosa. It gives us so much hope, isn't it? We feel it, the hope, but it brings more hope. Mas traz mais esperança. Andra, do you want to add something to this message?
Yes, I would like to ask, I would like to add something very important. I wish you to choose to benefit both of reconnective healing and your personal reconnection. And if you are more and more inspired to become practitioners and to be able to support other people in their evolutionary process. Thank you.
And I want to do my greetings to Andra for this interview that honestly it was the first time that I seen it. And one of the most beautiful things that I heard from J.J.Hurtak is his quote from of Mircea Eliade. That is one of my favorite writers that I can suggest to everyone, and maybe we can do also out of reconnective healing topics to do some studies about Mircea Eliade, because about the symbology, religion, etc., it's one of the best of the world ever.
Rodrigo,
and again, thank you so much, because you, Christina, because of the reconnective healing frequencies and the programs that we are facilitating together, created this this special moment.
Well, thank you everybody. Guillermo join us together, and this is giving fruits. It's getting deep. It's getting under the skin, and it's getting great. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Rodrigo, consegues traduzir o que dissemos todos um bocadinho?
Tive dúvidas só acerca do nome que o Guilherme disse, não quis dizer, não quero dizer mal.
Mircea Eliade.
Sim, mas eu vou ajudando.
Ok, vou começar pela Andra. Queria deixar uma mensagem de agradecimento à Cristina por fazer parte de facilitar este processo para muitas pessoas aqui em Portugal, no processo de evolução em que isto consiste, de facto, e que realmente queria deixar uma nota que isto é mesmo muito importante, este reconhecimento da importância da reconexão e das frequências reconectivas e da cura reconectiva. Eu não sei se me falha alguma coisa, Cristina, se quer acrescentar alguma coisa da parte da Andra.
Estava a dizer que se vocês sentem vontade de ajudar outros e de evoluir na vida, é muito simples. É uma capacidade inata nossa e depois desenvolvê-la é quase de forma orgânica. E é tão bonito ajudar-nos a nós e aos outros de forma constante e progredindo sempre, e estávamos a partilhar isso entre nós, porque o nosso trabalho em conjunto, ao facilitar estas frequências, nós próprios vivemos na nossa vida saltos quânticos fantásticos e fazemos progressões magníficas que nós nem mesmo contávamos. E eu estava a dizer que estava emocionada porque esta mensagem faz todo o sentido com a prática que nós temos e com a experiência que nós temos na nossa vida e na vida dos nossos clientes e amigos que passam por nós e que se vão embora porque recuperaram o poder deles e não precisam retornar. Convido-vos a todos a ver outra vez a entrevista que vai estar no YouTube e também está em inglês mais completa, com cerca de 50 minutos que a Andra fez. É muito difícil fazer entrevistas a J.J.Hurtak, ele nunca aparece, é muito difícil, ele é um investigador, é um grande estudioso e portanto não tem tempo para estas entrevistas. A Andra fez um trabalho magnífico e era por isso que eu estava a agradecer. Convido-vos, por favor, a juntarem-se a nós a ver nestes vídeos, mas também no Porto One Experience dia 5 e dia 6 e, quem sabe, noutra entrevista mais daqui a próximo que eu vou anunciar. Estamos sempre a fazer coisas, we are always trying to do something new and new ideas come, novas ideias vêm, por isso estejam atentos. Andra, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Obrigada.
I want to thank Christina for this wonderful idea that she had to have this gathering all together. That is something that is really creating this kind of consciousness that we need when we are approaching the training programs, because yes, the attendees, they are starting to be involved with the frequencies, with the online level 1, etc. But also we teachers, we are starting to be involved by the frequencies, and something is changing in us, and this is a great aspect that I want to highlight. So thank you, Christina, for your idea to be all together here. I will post one video each day of my road to Porto, of this kind of odyssey, okay? And thank you, Rodrigo, and thank you, Andra, for your wonderful job in Romania and in all the Eastern area. I am speaking in behalf also of all the company like a director, because your job is super appreciated. So I want to tell you that it's wonderful, everything you are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We have a guide.
I've learned
You are the trainer.
Rodrigo,
obrigado, Cristina. Quer que eu traduza esta parte? Acho que sim. Sim, realmente eu assino por baixo que o Guilherme disse que estes eventos por vídeo são realmente uma preparação ótima para o fim de semana que vem aí. E realmente até eu me sinto muito entusiasmado porque vem aí, portanto, muito obrigado.
E o Guilherme vem de carro, vai postando aí uns videozinhos de Portugal e nós vamos nos ver por aqui. André, thank you. Guilherme, thank you. Rodrigo, obrigada. Obrigada a todos aqui na minha sala Zoom.
Obrigada.
Obrigada, André. E até breve. Até breve.
Tchau.
Tchau, tchau.
Thank you.
Tchau.